All right, so while people start getting up in line, I'm going to ask a couple questions just to kick it off. Armin, how is, I know everyone knows you from Star Trek and Battlestar Galactica and Buffy.
I never did
Stargate,
Galactica.
not Battlestar, yeah. Getting a little mixed up here, that's my bad. But not many people really know you all that much from the from your video game work and your voice acting work. I personally do. I've loved a lot of your work, especially Ratchet and Clank and StarCraft. They're two of my favorite games. I'd like to know how you got into that aspect as opposed to the live action aspect of it, and if you like it a little bit better, or what you like about it as opposed to the live action.
Oh, that's a two-part question. You said you could only ask one question.
I said they could only ask one question.
Okay. Well, I'll answer the second question first. I enjoy being on camera a great deal, but it is preferable to do voiceover work because you don't have to shave. You don't have to memorize lines. You don't have to worry about blocking. You just go in and you read most of your lines off a piece of paper, excuse me. And you get 3 bites at the apple, and eventually they pick one of the bites, and you do, and then you move on to the next one. And usually when you're doing animation work, and I've done my share of cartoons, it's just a joyous occasion. 4 hours of very funny people locked in a room, all being very funny. I'm usually the least funny person there, and I just sit there and smile and laugh and have a good time. So there's that. How did I get involved in animation and voiceover work? Well, it shouldn't be surprising to anybody. It probably has to do with René Aubergenois. René, when he was in college at Carnegie Mellon, had a roommate, T.J. Escott. T.J. Escott runs one of the largest talent agencies for voiceovers. Probably most of the actors downstairs probably have CESD, which is the T.J. Escott Talent Agency. And I met T.J. several times at dinners with René. And one day, T.J. was, one of the many hats that I've worn is I was an official for the Screen Actors Guild, and we were negotiating a contract. And T.J., being the head of the agents organization, was helping us negotiate. And I said to him, I'm getting to be a certain age. There isn't as much on-camera work as there used to be. I'm sort of interested in doing voiceover work. And he said, come and see me. So I went in to visit TJ, and he introduced me to his half-sister, who was an agent at the agency. And she began to submit me. And a lady named Chris Zimmerman, who does a lot of voiceover work, casting and directing, got to know me, got to know my work, and just began to use me a lot. So a lot of my work is through Chris. There are other people as well. So that's how that all happened.
Well, that's wonderful. I think we'll get right into the audience and see what they have to ask you about.
Welcome to South Florida.
Thank you.
I'm a Trekkie since I was this big, and I'm 55
I've been
now.
Trekkie that big too.
That's very good. Deep Space Nine, by far, in my opinion, was the best series of all of them.
Thank you. You have good taste.
And your character was just absolutely stupendous. Are there any risque stories you'd like to share about the series? So you opened it up.
I did open it up, and thank you for asking. That's a very good question. The truth of the matter is, I don't have any stories. Not because there weren't any. Well, no, I should put that a different way. Because there weren't any. Our cast, as by now most of you must know, was the darker cast. And we were a little bit older than the other shows, Next Generation, Voyager, Enterprise. And when we went to work, we went to work. We went on the set. We had a good time. It was great fellowship. But we didn't joke around a lot, especially when you have Avery Brooks as the captain. So there weren't any risque stories, except perhaps, I don't think of this as risque, but it didn't happen on any other show, which is that Nana and Sid got married and they had children. So, but there wasn't anything particularly risque, except maybe some of the costumes. I remember perhaps this is risque. So we had a dress for one of the Dobble girls, for any of the Dobble girls. You had to be rather well endowed to wear this top. It didn't start at the bottom and come up. It started at the top and didn't really go down. It just laid on top, basically. And a lot of the women who were cast as background, as Dobble girls, would come on and be shown the costume and be a little nonplussed by that. But it was work. I don't remember anybody saying, I'm not going to wear this, but for years, actually, they would come once, they would wear the top, be very careful about it, and then never take the job again. Eventually, we had one lady whose name I should remember and I don't. She wore it, didn't have a problem with it. However, it's not risque, it's just bizarre. She went home one night to her boyfriend, and he murdered her. So that's as risque as I can get. Yeah, you're welcome. I'm here to tell you all the dirt. Okay.
I wasn't quite expecting that. So, hi, my name's Ruth.
Hi,
and,
Ruth.
My husband Peter and I are huge fans of the Star Trek franchise, and I raised my kids. I'm a teacher, and all summer long, all we do is watch Star Trek episodes, and their favorite by far is Deep Space Nine.
Great.
So let me get
Thank
that
you.
out of the way. So the first question, I have two questions, but I'll do the line thing, no problem. But the first question is from my husband. He asks, would you like to reprise Quark's role in any future Trek series? You are one of his favorite characters.
Thank you. I would like to reprise it as a guest star. It would not really be possible physically for me to do a series regular again as Quark, but I would certainly like to put on the head one more time and do Quark. I will tell you a very quick story before you get to your second question. On the last day of shooting, and as Karen, we'd finished the day, and Karen Westerfield, my incredible makeup artist, was removing the rubber head from my head for the last time, I heard a little Quark voice in my head going, "Don't kill me, don't kill me, don't kill me." But we did. But I wouldn't mind visiting him one more time. I think, luckily for me, because of all the prosthetic makeup I had, I can actually play my character again and be the same age that I was back then, 25 years ago. So the answer is yes, I would like to do it.
Hello, hello.
Hello?
A very long Star Trek fan. My family raised me on it. I have a quick question.
Sure.
Being Quark, what was your favorite Quark-centered episode on Deep Space Nine?
Magnificent Ferengi, and I'll tell you why. Thank you. There were all those wonderful character actors, short character actors, playing Ferengi. They were enormously funny, and I was in hysterics all during the shooting of it because they were so funny and they were all trying to one-up themselves. I played the comic character on our show, and I was funny at times. But by nature, as you can see now, I'm not by any means Ethan Phillips, who I adore, by the way. I adore him so much that I won't call him Ethan, I'll call him Johnny, his real name. But I'm not naturally funny. I play comic characters because of the way I look, because of the way I sound. But to be involved with all those wonderful comic characters being enormously funny all the time, that was a great delight, and I still, it brings a huge smile to my face when I think about them. If you were to ask me what my favorite episode is, and this is getting close to the one question I didn't want to answer, but my favorite episode is Far Beyond the Stars, because I believe that's some of the best writing, the best TV, the best social commentary that you'll find. And it didn't hurt that we were all out of makeup as well. But forget that part. It's an incredibly socially conscious episode about racism, incredibly directed by Avery Brooks.
My favorite as well. Thank you.
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
Good.
My question is, earlier I was able to sit in on the Q&A with Adam Nimoy and was lucky enough to see the trailer for the documentary on DS9, and I wanted to ask about your experience in participating in that documentary filming and what you think about the resurgence of interest in DS9.
Well, I was sitting there with you. I was in the back of the room with Terry. Terry's here, by the way. Terry Farrell, who played Dax. My experience, I believe Adam, Ira, our showrunner, was the interviewer on many of the clips. And I think both Ira and Adam told me that I was the longest interviewee. I think I went on for several hours. Not hard to imagine why. And I had a great time doing it. We had done some interviews in Vegas, and then about a year later, maybe a little bit more than that, I did interviews with Ira and Adam in Burbank, California. I had a lovely time doing it, and I must say that while we were watching the 10 or 15-minute clip, I'm very soft-hearted. Both Terry and I were slightly in tears watching the comments that people were making and the comments that Adam made. It is, if you saw the clip, you saw Nana mentioning something that I had said to her umpteen years ago. I said, because we knew early on that we were not going to be the favorite Deep Space Nine at that time. And I said, this show does really good work. In time, it will be discovered. In time, we will, the shadow that hangs over us, and it's a good shadow, it's other shows. In time, after they've gotten a chance to look at our work, to see the stories we told, to see our performances, to see what we were all about, I think there'll be a resurgence. I've waited 20, 25 years, but you're right, it's happening, and I'm grateful and honored. It was an incredible experience, and I'm very touched to have been a part of it. Very quickly, 40 years ago, before some of you were born, I sat in the same chairs as you sat in. I was a huge Star Trek fan, huge Star Trek fan. And the reason I'm involved in Star Trek is that when I heard Next Generation was casting, I did everything I could to get on that show because I was a huge Star Trek fan. So much so, it's too long a story, but I had a huge fight with my agent who, for very good reason, did not want me to do Star Trek. Not because there was anything wrong with Star Trek, just simply I was doing Beauty and the Beast, and my first Star Trek day, and one of my days in Beauty and the Beast conflicted. They both needed me the same day. And my agent said, you have to continue with the show that you're working on with Beauty and the Beast. And I said, I'm a huge Star Trek fan. I want to do Star Trek. And we had a huge fight over that. He was coming from the right place. I was coming from a guess, a hope, a desire. And I won because I'm the client. And I went on to do that box, that talking box, and the rest is history. So, yeah. Thank you.
Well, we're all very happy that you did not listen to your agent at that instance in time.
Me too.
Hi.
Hi.
I loved, as much as I loved your character of Quark, one of my favorite episodes you played was, since I'm a big Seinfeld fan, was when you played Kramer's golf caddy. Can you give me any insight as to what it was like to actually work with the Seinfeld cast after being so different with Deep Space Nine?
Sure, absolutely. I hated them. Hated them. They were non-communicative, ugly, non-responsive, what's the word? Insular. I was the guest star. The episode's called The Caddy. I played a caddy. I played the caddy. I was on that show for 5 days, every day. Nobody said a word to me, except cues. Nobody came up and started a conversation. I was already on Deep Space Nine. I was already a series regular on a TV show. That's not acceptable. It's not acceptable. If you have a guest star, if you have a day player, if you have an extra, you do not avoid them. You speak to them. We're all human beings together. I may not look like a human being, but we're all human beings together. And those 4 people on Seinfeld never said boo to me. I told you I'll tell you the dirt. Okay. Very quickly, one story, and then I'll move on to the next question. While we're shooting the episode, the last day, and it's around Christmas time, the gaffer, person who hangs the lights, comes up to myself, Elaine, and Seinfeld, and says, we have some problems with the lights. We have to reset the lights. Do you guys mind if you just sit there for a moment while we redo the lights? And I'm sitting on a pew, probably half the length of this chair to that. We're all squeezed in together. And so much so that she's on my shoulder. I mean, literally right here, and he's right here. And the lighting, instead of taking a few minutes, took a half an hour to redo. And the 3 of us are sitting there. It's Christmas time. The 2 of them are talking about their Christmas plans and what they're going to do for their vacation and all this stuff. And they talk for a half an hour. I'm between them. They're right here. Never once, not once, did they say, what are you going to do? Never once did they say, oh, pardon us for talking around you. Never once. It was as though I wasn't there. So I'm not very fond of them.
Interesting. Thank you for the truth.
Hi.
Hi.
Yeah, my question for you, Armin Shimerman, is, well, one, I'm a huge Ratchet and Clank fan.
Okay.
I think you probably saw me at the panel in my Clank impression. I just want to know, was the experience for you voicing Dr. Nefarious was different from the movie and the games, or nah?
No, the experience was pretty much the same because, like I said before, I was always in a booth by myself with the lines being played, well, written in front of me or sometimes screened in front of me, and I read off of the screen. But the voice, for those of you who don't know Ratchet and Clank, I play this maniacal robot scientist called Dr. Nefarious, and with all due respect, I'm going to do the voice, but I can't use the microphone, otherwise you'll all be out of here, because it's a very bizarre voice.
I hate you, squishies!
So the only difference between doing Nefarious and other voiceover characters
It's because it's up here all the time, my throat gets killed after about 2 hours.
and so in that sense, it was exactly the same. They would only use me for short periods of time. The one thing that didn't happen in the movie was the part that John Goodman played, the sort of lead mechanic. For some reason, they asked me to voice that as well. And I had a great time doing that. And though I was pretty sure they weren't going to use my voice for that, and at that time I didn't know John Goodman was going to do it. But I had a great time doing that. So the difference was I got to do this other voice, which I was really happy to do as well.
Cool. In the words of Clank, thank you, Dr. Nefarious.
Thank you, thank you.
Hi, I'm Michelle. In Deep Deep Space Nine, we see a whole lot of character development through the seasons, and I was wondering, like, how much say you got in the direction they took Quark's character?
The truth is, for most of Star Trek, maybe different for TNG, it was a slightly different regime then, but we had very little input. We were cast. They cast us for whatever reason they cast us. We brought our personalities to the characters. We weren't necessarily, we brought our personalities to the characters, but we couldn't, every word had to be exactly right. There was no better moment, having done a scene, than us turning to the script coordinator and her saying to us, DLP, lovey. We all lived for those words. DLP, lovey. DLP stands for dead letter perfect, which means we got the words exactly right. If we did not get the words exactly right, we did it again. So we had no input as far as, my wife is calling me. We had no input into language. We could take the writers out for lunch and suggest or ask questions about where the character was going, what we might want or not want. But aside from that, no, we had no input whatsoever.
Did they tend to lead the character development in a direction that was kind of towards your personalities? Like, did you notice that?
I think that's exactly right. I think what happened, and that's not a second question.
You can also trump me on that anytime, Armin.
I think as they got to know us better, and more importantly, as they got to know the characters better, they took what we gave in dailies, in takes, and went with that. I know, for instance, the relationship between Odo and Kira, the romance happened because they saw Renee give a look one day in dailies at Nana, and they said, oh, well, maybe he should fall in love with her from that look. And so that's how those things happen.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hello.
Hello.
You voiced one of the most iconic video game characters ever, Andrew Ryan from BioShock.
Yes.
The writing and the delivery were spot on. Could you give us any background on where that voice came from, or the experience of it?
It is incredible writing. It is, BioShock is, I am by occupation and by avocation a Shakespearean scholar and actor. In fact, in August of this year, August the 22nd, I am the newest Shakespeare professor at the the University of Southern California, USC. So when I tell you that BioShock's writing is comparable to Shakespeare's, you're hearing it from a professional, from an expert. It is incredible writing. When I auditioned, they sort of wanted a Russian sort of take on it, which I did, and luckily for us, for them and me, they realized on the first day that wasn't going to work. But they did realize that perhaps my regular voice is a little too high for what they wanted for Andrew Ryan. So although all of Andrew Ryan is me, giving my performance, my interpretation of the words and the lines, etc., they turned up the bass quality on the voice reproduction, so that it's a deeper voice. I can't even do my Andrew Ryan voice, but it was so inspiring to say that language that, don't tell them, I would have paid them to do that incredible performance, in the sense, in the writing was delicious. They brought me in about, I would say, 5 times during the course of the voicing of Andrew Ryan, and on many occasions they would give me the same speech that I had done before in a different session, and they had rewritten it, and I would say, so what did I do wrong? And they said, no, 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 it's not you. You did nothing wrong. We heard your performance, and we wanted to add something to it because of what you gave us. So it was a great collaboration between me and the writers of BioShock. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Hi again.
Hi.
So it's interesting to hear you say that because I'm a high school English teacher, and so somebody asked the question that I had, that I was thinking about. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to get to the mic. What am I going to say? So as a high school English teacher, what's your favorite Shakespeare work?
I don't have any favorite because they're all my children. I just finished doing King Lear at the Guthrie Theater, and so that's lovely. But they all have points about them that are very good. Even the ones that you've never heard before, you know, King John, Titus Andronicus, Timon of Athens, Coriolanus. They all have magnificent parts to them, and some of the more famous ones, Hamlet, As You Like It, Midsummer Night's Dream, have bad parts to them. Where you go, oh, really? Did he really write that shit? So I don't have per se a favorite.
Okay. Could you just say hello to my husband real quick?
Hello to my husband.
You forgot real quick.
Hello to my husband.
Real quick.
Hello to my husband real quick.
Thank you so much.
Hello, Armin. My name is Jonathan, and it's a pleasure to be able to speak to you for a few moments.
Thank you, Jonathan.
My question is not directly with Star Trek, but I want to say it's great that you were one of the few people to be able to reprise your role on multiple of the series on DS9 as well as Next Generation. But my question is about being able to play with some of those characters again on the show Boston Legal. What was it like being able to play with Renee again, and what was it like on that show?
Well, Boston Legal, you know, most people know me from my science fiction work, as they should. I've done a lot of that. But David, I've just forgotten, David, the creator of, thank you. David Kelly actually used me in as many shows as he possibly could, and I would have done a lot more David Kelly shows, actually, if I wasn't so busy doing science fiction shows. In fact, I was cast as a series regular on Picket Fences a week after I got Deep Space Nine. So I would have been on Picket Fences, and you would know me as a David Kelly actor instead of a Rick Berman actor. They're great. I love playing, mostly I play judges for David. Even Boston Legal, although I didn't preside as a judge. And I have to tell you that story. Yes, I'll tell you that story. It was different writing, different, it's real life, it's different. And I always had to be careful. I have a tendency to sometimes overact. And in order to fulfill what I wanted to do on David Kelly's shows, I tried to minimalize, keep it down, keep it down, keep it down. Since you asked this question, forgive me for going on a tangent, but it's a lovely story, so I'm going to tell it to you. Because Renee, and you have a question about Renee, and I will get to that too. Because Renee was on Boston Legal, my wife and I were watching it and really loved the show a great deal. And I kept saying to my agent, so I'd love to audition for David Kelly and Boston Legal. I really want to do that show. And they would say, well, we're looking for the right part, blah, 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 a lot of BS. And one day, my agent calls and says, we have an audition for you for Boston Legal. However, we recommend highly that you don't take it. And I said, why? Up until that point in my career, whether I worked 1 day or 8 days, my billing was always guest star. They said, they want you for 1 day to play this judge, but they're not going to give you guest star billing. And if you don't get guest star billing, by the way, you don't get guest star money either. My agent, doing their job, and that's what they're supposed to do, said, we can't convince them otherwise. We recommend highly you do not take this job. And I said, well, what kind of part is it? They said, it's a judge, on Boston Legal. I said, I really'd like to do this show. And they said, really, Armin, for your career's sake, do not do this. So again, we had an argument, different agent, but same argument. And eventually, I'm the client, I won. And I took it. Agent was not happy at all. I went to work and did this judge on Boston Legal and finished it, did my day's work. That was as far as I was concerned. And I'd also said to my agent, and all the David Kelly shows I've done, I've always recurred as a judge, always come back. So I think it's worth my while to take this job. Now, they processed the film for the work that I had done, let's say on a Monday. On a Tuesday, David Kelly walked into his writer's pen and said to all the writers, I'm not firing you, you're all still employed, but I want to write a storyline that for about 7 episodes with a whole new group of actors, characters, and I want to write it myself. I don't need any help. I just want to do it. So they all were told to take a vacation for a number of weeks. On a Wednesday, they called in actors to audition for the parts in this sort of mini series that Kelly was doing in Boston Legal. They brought in Ethan Phillips, for instance, and David didn't like any of the people that were auditioning for this short judge. That same day, he went to Daly's to see the work from Monday, and there was Armin Shimerman playing a judge, and he said, I'll take Armin for this part on the sort of 7-episode arc. And on a Friday, I got a phone call from my agent saying, they want you to come back as this judge that you did before, but it will be slightly different, same name. And so instead of 1 episode, I did 8, and I got guest star billing the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th. And David Kelly, bless his heart, if you recurred more than 5 times on a show, he, out of the goodness of his heart, would give you an enormous raise in salary. So in my 6th, 7th, and 8th episode, I made a very good salary doing the judge that my agent had told me not to take. So. Oh, Renee. So very quickly, they send me the 2nd script, or the 3rd script of this judge part, and I call Renee up, and I say, Renee, is this a joke? The one scene I have in the episode is with Renee, and I say, isn't this Quark and Odo? Isn't this Quark and Odo? He said, yeah, Armin, don't memorize it. It's just a gag. They'll never shoot it. They'll never shoot it. And I said, you can say that. You're a series regular. I'm just a low-paid guest star. And we shot it. Indeed, they did shoot it. But the best part of the shooting was, again, the gaffer, the man who sets the lights. Renee and I were between takes, sitting on the desk, and the gaffer was sitting between us. He didn't really know me. I'd just been there 2 episodes before, but he knew Renee really well. And so he's sitting between us, and he turns to Renee and indicates me, and he said, I just watched the 2 of you work together doing that scene. It looks like you guys have been doing this for years. Which brought a smile to both Renee and I. So there you go.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, thank you.
Good to see you.
Thank you. And thank you so much for coming out and doing this and giving your time. It's very kind. I'm just curious to ask, I'm sure all of us in the room can tell us what we love about all of the characters that you've played. My particular favorite is Quark, and I'm just wondering what it is about Quark that you love or that you loved to do each and every time you came to set.
That's a great question. Thank you. I am basically, or was at one time, a very shy person. And although I was an actor, I was very sort of into myself and was afraid to show my real self. Quark taught me to be otherwise. Quark told me that anything I did, for the most part, was okay with other people, and that I could be myself with other people. And he was not only that, but Quark, in my opinion, as opposed to Armin, now Armin does, but then Quark loved people. Loved people, loved to be a people person, loved to communicate, loved to talk to people, and loved life, loved to be alive. Absolutely. I didn't really know that or hadn't experienced it that much until that character became my alter ego. And it taught me to love life. And so that's what Quark taught me.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Hello again.
Hello.
Okay, so I had this question for Avery Brooks, but I didn't get a chance to ask him. So I'm going to ask you.
I'm afraid I can't answer it like Avery Brooks.
All right. So when Deep Space Nine was announced, there was an article in TV Guide where they said that Avery Brooks was just going to play a commander and not a captain.
That's right.
Because you didn't need a captain to run a space station. And just personally, I was like, I really was offended by that, saying like, why can't he be a captain? I know it's a title, but like, you know, just because it just in the back of my brain, I was like, is this because he's black, he can't be a captain?
No, it had nothing to do with his race. Absolutely not. It was what they said. They didn't need a captain. And they were trying to break the rules. So they'd had 2 captains in a row, and those were the leads in the TV show. And they were trying to break the rules. I mean, Star Trek is not about boldly going somewhere else. It's about boldly staying in one place. And so part of the way they were breaking the rules was that they were going to make him a commander. But the feedback from the same point of view that you're coming from was the man that's running this station should be a captain. So within, a year or so, they made him a captain.
When he showed up at the start of season 4 with those pips on his shirt, I literally clapped in my room, and then I got in trouble from my mom because it was 11 o'clock at night and I was supposed to be in bed. So I was very excited that they finally made that change and did it right.
I will also tell you that in the first episode, my voice is different. It's another story, but my voice is different from the rest of the shows. In the first episode, I'm using my TNG voice as opposed to what became my Deep Space Nine voice. And every time I said the word commander, it came out very Irish. And when, commander. Berman brought me up to his office for notes, as he did for everybody after that first episode. And he said, Armin, don't use that voice and don't say commander that way anymore, because we already have an Irishman on the show. So.
And last thing before I go here, the episode where you and Odo are stranded on the planet.
Ascent.
Yeah, the way you deliver that line, "I hate you," is like my favorite delivery of the entire show. Like it's so mean and it's so direct and so plain that to this day I teach an acting class and I will show that little bit, like that little exchange, and I'm like, and the way you just hit it right at the end, like it shuts the whole thing down. Like it's over, after you've said what you need to say and there is no response. But anyway, thank you, and thank you.
Thank you, very kind, thank you.
Hi. Anyway, I have 2 questions. One, what's your favorite Buffy the Vampire Slayer episode?
That's the question I won't take. I don't like to answer what's my favorite. They're all my favorites. And so ask me your second question. That's the one question, you win the Cupid Prize. That's the one I won't answer.
Honestly, I'm still on season 2 of the show, sorry. So I don't
Say,
know much.
no, so what's it? Go ahead.
I said, honestly, I'm still on season 2 of the show on Netflix.
Of
So I don't
Buffy?
know. Yes.
Okay, and so I don't think Snyder's there yet in season 2, is he?
He debuted in season 1.
I am?
I
Of
think-
course.
I think the
Flutie
second episode.
has been eaten, and I've come in. Well, you have a lot in store for you if you're only on season 2. You're going to really like Buffy a great deal. It's a wonderful, wonderful show.
Cool. And my second question is, you ever wonder if Billy and Mandy returned? You ever wonder you want to go back voicing General Scar?
I would love to do General Scar again. General Scar, yes. I'll alert the media. I would love to do Scar. I did Scar for 3 or 4 years on Evil Con Carne. Yes,
Yeah.
Grim and Evil, which is the over. And then they brought me over to Billy and Mandy. And in fact, there was a third show. I can't remember the name of it. There was a pilot for a new cartoon, and I was Scar was what?
Underfist.
That's it. Thank you. You follow my career better than I do.
I know Maxwell Adams a lot. That's all.
You do? Will you give him my regards then? Yeah. He was lovely to me. I was just learning my craft about how to do cartoons and voiceovers. They were enormously kind with me, enormously kind.
Well, not in person. I just know him by his work. That's all.
Thank you.
Well.
Okay, hi again.
Hi.
Okay, DS9 seemed like such an ensemble cast. Was it really like kind of felt like a family? And did you have that same vibe on Next Generation?
Good question. Very good question. No, they were not the same. They were not the same at all. The Next Generation people were a little younger when they started than we were. They tended to be, for the most part, not married. I think Patrick was married. LeVar was married. Jonathan was married. Michael certainly wasn't. I don't know whether Denise was or not. Marina wasn't. But what I'm trying to say is, when the shooting was over, they would go out and party. And they're still incredibly good friends, very, very close friends. And they would just go out and party. Jonathan and Brent both tell me that it took them 2 years to chill Patrick Stewart out. Ours was older. We were all married, I think, maybe except for Sid. And we went to work. Our ethic was to do the very best Star Trek that we possibly could. We were not, you can ask the TNG people and they will tell you about the pranks that were played and the tricks and the good humor and stuff like that. Nothing like that ever happened on our show. And again, maybe the difference in the two captains. The truth is also when you have Brent Spiner and Jonathan Frakes and LeVar Burton, I feel like a play is about to start. Those guys are incredibly funny and fun-loving, and we had fun-loving people, but not to that extent. And when the day was over, we went home to our families, and we all adore each other. It is a family. The Deep Space Nine people are incredibly dear to me, as I'm sure I am to them. But it wasn't the same dynamic as Next Generation. Also, I mean, in hindsight, the TNG people get together many times during the year for celebrations, birthdays, 4th of July, that sort of things. Because the Deep Space Nine family lives all around the world, we rarely see each other. The only time we really get to see each other is at conventions. I got to see, Terry Farrell, who I haven't seen for months and months and months, only because of conventions. So thank you all for coming to conventions. Because you come to conventions, I get to see my friends. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, guys, we have time for about 2 more questions. So it's going to
Okay.
be this lady and the gentleman behind her.
Hi.
Hi.
I loved you as Principal Snyder in Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Thank you.
Buffy. What was your experience working in that show, and why do you think it became such a cult TV show that's still relevant today?
My experience on Buffy was stupendous, and most of you must know, but for those of you who don't, I did both Star Trek and Buffy at exactly the same time. So many times I would work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday for Deep Space Nine, and Thursday or Friday for Buffy. It was, again, as part of my answer in the last question, the Deep Space Nine people were a little bit older and had families. Certainly all the people on Buffy that I worked with, the Scooby gang, they were, except for Tony, all of them were unmarried, and they were very young people. And because I was already somewhat known to them as a Star Trek actor, I was sort of the go-to person. They would come to me to ask questions about conventions, about agents, about whatever. And because I wasn't there every week, they would come to me and talk to me about whatever problems they'd had while I was gone with somebody. I won't say who, but with anybody. And so it was a different ethos altogether than the Star Trek franchise, which is a machine. It just cranks itself on. This was a brand new enterprise, and it was learning, getting its sea legs, learning its way. So that's the difference. Why did it become a cult classic? Because the stories are so incredibly good. Because everyone has gone to high school. Everyone has felt like they were a misfit. Everyone has thought other people are having a better time than I am. And Joss and his other writers, were able to just say that in the most miraculous, metaphorical way. And I had watched the show prior to being on it and was already addicted to it because the stories were so good. I will tell you one last story, because I know your time is getting short. Very quickly. At the end of their last season, the last episode, their office called my agent up and asked me if I would come and take a photo shoot with the cast and crew on the very last day of shooting. Certainly, as you know, I'm long gone from Buffy. And I assumed that because it was the last day, that there would be hundreds of recurring characters there with me to complement the cast and crew for the incredible years that they had spent together, that we had been a part of. It was a great honor for me. I went to the set, expecting, as I said, to see hundreds of people, and there were only 4. It was myself, Christine Sutherland, who played Buffy's mom, one of the 3 nerd guys, and I can't remember the 3, maybe Jonathan, yes. And the 4th person wasn't an actor at all, was the director of photography. And we went on the set, we caught up with all the crew and cast. I said goodbye to Sarah and Allison and everybody else. And we took the pictures, and that was the end. Now, we finished that. I'm walking back to my car, and I'm talking to Joss Whedon, and Joss and I are walking back to the same parking area. And I said to Joss what I just said to you. I expected more people. Why were there only 4? And he said, one of the nicest compliments I ever got, he said, Armin, you 4 are the only 4 that all of us liked. So from that, you can see I had a very good time on the Buffy set.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm Daniel. I'm a fan of your work on Star Trek.
You're going to have to speak a little louder, because I'm a little deaf. Go ahead, ask the question.
Oh. I just wanted to ask you about, I want to enter the filmmaking industry in the future. And I just wanted to ask you what, on your opinions on, say, unions and the general, industry and whatnot.
Which part of the business do you want to get into?
Like, what your opinion on unions and how they help actors and film directors and whatnot.
Okay, great. So the question, I'm sure all of you heard, was how do unions help or hurt people in the business? I don't know whether you're aware of this or not, but I was a union official for 7 years. In fact, the episode where Quark has to deal with a union in the bar, I'm really sure they wrote that because they knew I was a union official. So my answer is going to be what you would expect from a union official, They're very good. I will tell you this from my heart. It's never good to get political at a Star Trek convention. But I think part of the dilemma of the middle class of America is the demise of unions. The fact that the whole debate about insurance would be less loud and less important, because it's incredibly important, if the unions were as much in effect as it was when I was your age, because unions always supplied insurance to their union people. Unions will take care of you when you're sick. Unions will hopefully try to find you a job. And although you're way too young to think about this, but it applies to me, unions will give you a pension when you retire. There are questions in our business about when to join a union, about whether you should do it right away or a little bit later. That depends on which part of the business you want to go into and where you live and what the state is doing as far as unions. Some states have right-to-work states. So like for in Texas, you don't have to be in the union to work. In California, if you're in our business, you have to sort of be in the union in order to go to work. Depends where you live, depends on how old you are, depends on what you want. But coming from me, and take it with a grain of salt that I was a union official for the Screen Actors Guild for 7 years, unions are important. You have to join them. They'll take care of you.
Thank you all for coming out to this panel. A special thank to Armin for being here and doing the panel with us. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day at Florida Supercon 2017. Thank you very much.
Thank you.